Boker Tov, today's daf is daf Tzadik Gimel and Yevmot says we learned for 4 Shleim 4. Yosef Israel ben Chaim Michal and Elazar ben Reuma. Yesterday we began the discussion of can you transfer possession of something which is not yet in this world? It's not here yet. So we got into it because we were talking about on Amid Beis the question of can a Yevamah L'Shuk, which is basically an only Isser Lav. It's not an Isser Karis. Not chayiv misa or anything if she marries shuk. If she instead of waiting for instead of waiting for Yibam Chalitza, she marries Yankel in the street. So we had a machlokas. Rav says kedushin is not tofes at all, and that's what we came out. Rav Yanai said they took a vote. Kedushin is not tofes at all. There's no kedushin. You don't even need a get. Shmuel says we're not sure. Therefore, you should give her a get. So Rav Yochanan said to Rav Yanai, who paskined that way. He said, isn't that in the Mishnah? The Mishnah says, if I say to somebody, a man says to a woman, listen, I want you to marry me. Here's your kedushin after you get chalitza. So we say over there, it's not mekudeshes. Why? Presumably because he can't marry her now. Kedushin's not chal right now. That was his proof. He says, oh, well, I'm enlightening you. If it would just be for the Mishnah, it could very well be because it's a davar shelo ba'olam. He's saying, I'm marrying you now after you get chalitza. I'm marrying you now. It should be chal, or as soon as you get chalitza, but it's not here right now. She didn't get chalitza yet. It's a davar shelo ba'olam. Something which is not here yet cannot take an effect. Maybe that's the reason. So, but that's what the reason was. And he said, no, the reason is because kedushin wouldn't be chal even today. Even if he had chalitza, even if he said not after you get chalitza, he marrying her right now, before chalitza, kedushin would not be chal, according to Rav Yanai and according to Rav. That's what his reasoning is. Then the Gemara went on to say, well, maybe the Mishnah is b'chalal goes or b'kiva, and kedushin tafsum chayv elaven. Not because kedushin is not tofes, specifically in the case of Yevamah L'Shuk, because maybe goes like b'kiva holds chayv elaven, kedushin is not chal at all. All chayv elaven, even Kohen marrying a grusha, machzor geshas mishanis says maybe it doesn't work at all. Then the Gemara came out and says, well, if according to Bekiva, it should work for a different reason. It should work because it could be maked davar shalom, because we found Rabbi Kiva says, if a woman says to her husband, I forbid my hands that are doing work for you, all that work is forbidden. So the Mishnah says over there that it doesn't work. Why? Because she's already required to give him that work. She's Meshuabad. Her work is, so to speak, leaned to him already. But Kiva says, no, she might do more than necessary, and that work could be given to her, and therefore it would be chal. So what do you see from over there? Even though the work is not here right now, she can forbid that the produce, the product of that work, her handiwork, she can forbid that on her husband, showing you even though it's not here right now, it would work. So the Gemara says, no, maybe this is at the top of Samik Gimel. We said, the third line, speak where she sanctified her hands. She didn't sanctify the work. She sanctified her hands. The Yadayim Isnu Ba'alma. Her hands are here right now. We said yesterday the simple translation is meaning for the product. I'm sanctifying my hands for the product of their work. Tosfos doesn't like that because Tosfos says that should say, then the word should say Yaday L'ma'asayim for what they've done. But Yaday L'osayim means for the one who created them. I'm sanctifying them to God, so to speak, so that any work that they produce is holy. The hands themselves are holy. In any case, the Gemara wants to say from there, therefore, you can't prove that Rabbi Kiva says that a person could transfer possession or could acquire something or can give something away, something that's not here yet. For example, things that after you get freed, after you convert, after you get chalitza, can it be chal right now? We said, apparently you can't. Maybe Rabbi Kiva says you can. No, because it's very possible that you can't, even according to Rabbi Kiva, you can't transfer something or acquire something which is not here yet. That's speaking about where you were makdish, she was makdish her hands, and maybe that's why according to Rabbi Kiva it works there. So this got us into the discussion. We're going to take a break a minute from Yevamah and Yevamah L'Shuk, which according to Rav and Rav Yanai, kedusha is not chal at all. According to Shmuel, we're not sure about it, and therefore she would need a get in the case of Yevamah L'Shuk. Again, we're talking about Yevamah L'Shuk means that she was supposed to wait for Yibam or Chalitza from Shimon, and instead she married Yankel in the street. It's only a Isser Lav. According to Rabbi Kiva, the product could be a mamzer, but according to everybody else, it's not. According to the general opinion of the rabbi, says it's not a mamzer. Is kedushin chal, which you need to get? That's the shiloh between Rav and Shmuel. But meanwhile, we're taking a break today, and we're going to look at, or at least for the first part of today, we're taking a look at the concept of can you acquire or transfer something which isn't here yet today. So the Gemara goes on to say, this is where we left off yesterday in the fourth line of Dat Tzadik and Pliga. This that we just said, that maybe Rabbi Kiva doesn't hold that you can transfer something which is not here. I mean, here she's speaking about where she says she was makdash, she sanctified her hands, and therefore anything that her hands produced, her handiwork, like Michael says, would become holy or forbidden under the vow to her husband. But this disagrees with the following rabbis. It's like the Rav Meir, he says the following thing. All the following rabbis hold like their master Rebbe, Rabbi Kiva, that a person could transfer property of something which isn't even here yet. It's not in the world yet. It didn't happen yet. Where does he see this? Is because he says as follows: Rav Huna, who was the later Amora, held like Rav, his Rebbe, and Rav held like his Rebbe Rav Yana. Each one is a Talmud with a Rebbe from a prior generation. Rav Huna was the generation after Rav. He learned from Rav, and Rav learned from Rav Yanai. Rav Yanai Rav Chia, and Rav Chia Rebbe, and Rebbe Rav Meir, Rav Meir Rav Blazer, and Yaakov Blazer Rav Kiva. The Amar who said Adamak Davar Shalom. He says very clearly. This Rav Nachman Yitzchak says no. Like we wanted to say originally, Rabbi Kiva might hold a person could be Mak Davar Shabbat Shalom Olam, and therefore, how could that Mishnah have said that Eina Mekudeshes or it doesn't work? Rabbi Kiva holds you could transfer something or acquire something which is not here yet. Makna simply means a person is transferring property to somebody else, something which isn't here yet. And now he's going to go through and show how each one of these rabbis, starting with Rav Huna, they all hold that same opinion. Rav Huna Mahi, you sell somebody's fruits. It's in the wintertime, the fruits haven't grown yet. I'm sending you, what we call in America, futures. I'm selling you futures, not here yet. I'm selling you futures. You can only renege on the deal. You can retract it before they're here. The sale takes place, and you can renege on it. You go back if they're not here. Once the fruits are here, they've grown. That's it. You're done. You made whatever kinyan you made. You made a kinyan, and then kinyan chalipin, or maybe you won on behalf of the others. Whatever you did, you sold the payros. However it works, payros are generally davar tolish, so it doesn't work with, let's say, maybe it was a kinyan agav. Whatever the kinyan was, he sold them. They weren't here yet, and therefore he says you can only renege on them until they are grown. But once they're in the world, once they've grown, you can't renege on it because they automatically belong to the purchaser. Rav Nachman, no, even once Rav Nachman disagrees, he says, no, you can't be makdav shalom. So the sale didn't take place. Therefore, even once they're here, the seller can go back on. Rav Nachman, I agree. If the buyer plucks them off and ate them, you can't demand it back because you did have intention for a sale. So if he plucked them and ate them, so he acquired them based on the earlier understanding. But according to Rav Nachman, so Rav Nachman disagrees and says, ain't on a makdav shalom, but once they're here and he ate them, so they had agreed on a deal. Rav Huna said, no, as soon as the payros grow, as soon as the fruits grow, they belong to the purchaser because the deal was made before. The deal that we said before, when it was a future, and said the fruits that are going to grow, I'm selling to you now, that deal takes effect as soon as the fruits are there. But the deal, the acquisition can take place even before the fruits are there. You can go back on it if the fruits aren't here. Maybe he didn't make a kinyan, but once the fruits are there, it's already too late because the deal was a deal. So you could be makdav shalom. Rav also holds that. That was Rav was the Rebbe of Rav Huna. Rav Huna Rav. Here we see it said the name of Rav. Clearly, Rav Huna got it from his Rebbe. I'm buying a field. I haven't bought it yet. Waiting for the lawyers to sit down. Takes a while. But this field that I'm about to buy, like Shechena, when I buy it, it's yours from right now. I'm giving it to you as a gift from right now. I don't have it yet. How can I make a deal? It's a davar shalom. I don't own it. How can I give you something today which I don't own yet? The answer is I can do that. I can transfer possession of something which I don't have it. It's a davar shalom. I don't have it yet. I'm selling you something today that I'm going to buy in the future. That's like, you're selling short and selling long and all those kind of things. That's really that same concept that we have here. And all these rabbis hold that it's valid. Rav Yanai, where do we see the story of Rav Yanai? A story we have with Rav Yanai is false. Rav Yanai, he holds like his Rebbe, Rav Yanai Rav Chia. Rav Yanai holds it also. We're going to see he holds like Rav Chia, his Rebbe. And where do we see it from? From the following story that included both Rav Yanai and Rav Chia. What happened? Rav Yanai Rav Yanai had a sharecropper, a tenant on his farm. Every Friday, he would show up with a basket of fruits. And Rav Yanai would take the fruits and would be mafresh trumas and maestros, and he would eat them on Shabbos. So one Friday, Nagale, he delayed. It was Friday afternoon, it was almost Shabbos, and the sharecropper hadn't brought the baskets yet. But he anticipated, Rav Yanai anticipated he's going to bring it. He always does. So he didn't come. He didn't come till right before Shabbos. Shakol Eser Mipere Debese. He took, let's say, meiser or tenth of fruits in his house, a liar, meaning Rav Yanai was mafresh tumas or meises before he even had the fruits that he's going to eat. The guy was going to bring him a basket of fruits, and he didn't come yet. He didn't have them yet. It was still in the tenant's possession. He didn't bring him to Rav Yanai. But Rav Yanai said it's getting close to Shabbos, so he was mafresh tumas or meises on them. Asking Rav Chia, and he came for Rav Chia, said, "Is what I did okay?" And as I was mafresh the trumas and maestros, even though I didn't have the basket of fruits yet that I wanted to eat, is it okay? Rav Chia told him, his Rebbe told him, Shapiro about it. You did right, you did okay. In other words, Rav Yanai did it. He was mafresh on something which he didn't have yet. And his Rebbe told him, yeah, you did as good. That's how we learn. The pasuk says in reference to trumas and maestros, it says, when you do trumas and maestros, you will learn from there to fear God all the days. What do you mean by all the days? Tell you could even do it on Shabbos and Yom Tov. So maybe Nagale means that he waited so long that he was actually mafresh trumas and maestros on Shabbos. It was already getting close to Shabbos. He anticipated the guy's going to come, so he was mafresh trumas and maestros. Now, what do you mean you can mafresh trumas and maestros on Shabbos? Why did the Torah tell us this? The Torah says, even on Shabbos and Yom Tov, you can mafresh trumas and maestros. The Torah is telling us that. What's the problem on Shabbos? To take maestros and eat them. It's a kol meshrei tiltul v'rabbanan. Moving things on Shabbos, and including here, we're talking about just moving like muktzah or fixing something. This is a tikkun. We're not talking about a doraisa of makav apatas. We're just talking about amending something, taking it out of one status to another. It's not an instrument of Torah. The Torah doesn't have to come to match something which is mutter min Torah. Can't be that. The Torah doesn't have to come to match that. We don't need that. Even though Shabbos is the miskim pshita. Rashi says, it's only in Isser Drabanan. The time ain't like being Trumas and Maestros, basically an inyan of muktzah and fixing something. It's like Kain Tikkun. The Torah wouldn't forbid that. Ella Lavki Agavnim. This is what it's trying to teach us, that the mutter lasses amashalovo alalim vasalovo l'tzarach onik Shabbos. For onik Shabbos, in order to have a good Shabbos, you don't want to be able to be without these nice fruits for your Shabbos party on Shabbos. So the Torah is telling us that, you know what, L'man Yira, Rashi said before, you shouldn't be Mavatal. You shouldn't void Onik Shabbos and lose Shabbos, because Tikkun Tevel, you can fix it even on Shabbos. So the Torah telling you that even though it's not here yet. That's the Chiddush to tell you that even though it's not here, so you don't have the fruits yet, you're still allowed to take Trumas and Maestros. Here again, you can acquire something and you can change the status, make something chal, even on something which isn't here yet. Amalei, so this is Rav Yanai consulted his Rebbe, Rav Chia, and Rav Chia said, yeah, it's okay. Because Lamani to teach you, you can even give Trumas and Maestros on something which isn't here yet. It's not something you can be matzah, you can do it on Shabbos. The only problem on Shabbos would be an Isser Rabbanan. The pasuk, it can't be matzah and Isser Rabbanan, and a Torah it's mutter, telling you could even do it for the future. Amalei, so Rav Yanai protested, yeah, but I'm still a little bit unsure, Rebbe. V'akayin b'chamad, they read me in my dream, kana rotzutz, a pasuk that talks about a broken or a bruised reed. A bruised reed. Now, there's only a few psukim in the Tanakh that talk about a bruised reed, and I thought my love isn't referring to this pasuk. Isn't this what they refer? What the pasuk? What they read me in my dream? Here you relied, you insured on, you relied on al mishenes, on a staff, hakana rotzos, of a broken reed, which is if to say you relied on something which is bad, meaning it's not so good what you've done. Isn't that what they've told me when I said when I took Trumas Amaisa on something before I actually had it? Right? You relied on Mishenas Hakana Rotzes Hazeh, you relied on this broken reed. So Rav Chia answered, no, it's a different kind of Rotzes. The Kana Rotzes that not says in Malachim, but rather it says in Yeshaya. It says, Kana Rotzes lo yishbor, the bruised reed will not break, upishtakea lo yichabena, and the dimly lit wick will not be extinguished. And the pasuk ends off. Rashi brings down the end of the pasuk. What does the pasuk say? Pasuk says the end. Say for the Qur'an, la'emes yotzi mishpat. The judgment will come out in truth. Right? The judgment will be for truth, meaning you've done good. The shopper about it, you've done good. So therefore, all these rabbis, we had Rav Huna and we had Rav, and we had Rav, and now we've had Rav Yana and Rav Chia, who all say that you can transfer possession or acquire something which isn't here yet. Even though it's not here yet, you have the ability to do that. That's so far those four. Now we have more Rebbe. What if Rebbe Tanya says, you shouldn't return an Eved to his master. What are we speaking about? You shouldn't return an Eved's master. Rebbe Yom Lokech Eved, you buy an Eved, you're buying an Eved with the intention, on the condition that you're going to free him. So you can't change your mind afterwards and keep him as a slave and work with him. Because if you bought him on the condition that you're going to free him, even though how can you free him if you don't have him yet? You're making a transfer of possession. You're giving the Eved his own freedom, even though you don't even own him yet. That's also something. That's what it's speaking about. The Kosovo law, you wrote in the shtar, you wrote a shtar like Shekecha. When I buy you, you've acquired yourself from right now. As soon as I have you, you're free from right now. Meaning, as soon as I do this transaction, it's like retroactively it's done, even on our own right now. So here's another Shita. This is Rebbe Shita. Rebbe was the Talmud of Rav Meir, and Rav Chia was a Talmud of Rebbe, and Rav Yana was a Talmud of Rav Chia, and Rav was a Talmud of him, and Rav Huna was a Talmud of him. They all hold this same Shita that a person out of Makdam Shalom. Rav Meir, where do you have Rav Meir? Shita the Tana Omali. Sure, we had this case before yesterday. Omali should tell a woman, I'm still a guy, so I can't marry you. A guy can't marry a Jew. It's not a valid marriage. I'm marrying you after I convert. After you convert, I'm a Jew, you're a convert. Okay, I'm marrying you from now as soon as you convert. So how can you do something that's not here yet? She hasn't converted yet. All this, or after I free, if I'm a slave, after you're freed, if you're the slave, I'm marrying you after your husband died. We're not going to kill him, but after he's dead, right? I'm marrying you, and here's your ring. After your husband, he can't marry him right now. He can't marry her right now. She's married to somebody else. Still works with Davar Shalom Olam. He's married to her sister. So he says, after your sister, meaning his wife, dies, then the Kishan will be chal on her. After you get chalitza, this is how we came into this Gemara yesterday. Is it because the Kishan is not chal on a Yavama right now, or it's because of Davar Shalom Olam, right? So he says, the Tanakama says Anim Kudeshes, either because it's a Davar Shalom Olam, Rav Meir Mekudeshes. Rav Meir says even though it's a Davar Shalom Olam. The convert hasn't converted yet, the slave hasn't been freed.
How could you conceive of a non-Jew saying something like that?
No, that's the point, that it's not here yet and it still works.
No, but he's not.
Oh, he's learning.
There's no, halacha doesn't apply to him.
Right, doesn't apply to him yet, but it will. So even though it's not here yet, it applies. That's the whole idea, that even though the thing isn't here yet, it still works. That's exactly.
I'm not a Jew yet, so I could already conceive of halacha.
That's right. That's, of course you can conceive of it for sure. No, you don't mean that he doesn't understand it. Right. Because
I understand slave. I understand all the.
Of course, non-Jew or a slave or anything else. It's not here yet. It's still something. It's not here yet. According to Meir, it works. It's a Davar Shalom Olam. He's not Jewish, right? But it will be. When it will be, it's effective for right now. That's his point. Now, it doesn't always work from right now. The Me'achshav worked on the case where you buy an Eved Al Manasa Shachro. He's free from right now, meaning as far as his freedom is concerned. Right now, the slave still belongs to Yankel over there, right? So it can't do anything physically. But it means Me'achshav. Me'achshav makes a difference in terms of a divorce, when it was chal, things like that. Now, in these cases, it can't be chal from right now because right now he's still a goy, right? Or he's a slave. You can't say, right? You can't say that the marriage took place from right now. But I could make a deal on something that's going to take place in the future, even though it's not here right now. In other words, when he says, I'm a goy right now, let's take your case. I'm a goy right now. And as soon as I convert, I'm giving you kedushin right now. It should be chal after I convert. So the point is, even though it's not here yet, that's a valid deal. It can't be chal from right now retroactively, because right now, today, he's still a guy. So even if you say he converts in a week, you can't say it was a marriage from before, because at that point he was really still a guy. You can't go back in time. You can't, you understand? In this case.
Now.
Yeah. No, he's not saying now. In this case, he's not saying now. He's saying harei mukadeshesli, and it should be chal after I'm megayer.
But he's saying it now. So
he's saying it now.
He's
saying it now, right. It's not going to be effective from right now, but it's going to be right when what I say now can have effect for later on, even though it's not here yet.
It's really effective in the future, really.
Yeah.
Future, right? If thing doesn't exist now.
That's right. Oh, well, there might be slight differences. For example, if you're selling something short, right? So you don't have it yet, really, but it's like you do have it. So it depends on the case. In some case, me'achshav, is it me'achshav or not? In the case we said before, you're buying an Evan on Manasseh Shachro, so you're saying he's freed from right now. Not really free from right now, but you could say retroactively it has a deal. We had an afkamina, for example, by a get. If a man says that a man doesn't want his wife to fall yibam, let's say he's about to die, he doesn't want to fall yibam, so he gives her a get, and he says that it should be chal. He doesn't want to divorce her right now, but he doesn't want her, gives her a get. It should be chal 1 second before he dies, or it should be chal from today. So from today, let's say he says he winds up not dying till a year later, but it was chal retroactively from right now. So for example, let's say she was mazana in between. She wasn't married really at the time. Understand? Gave her, right? Because at the time, she was divorced from right now. So sometimes you can fool around with when it's chal. Same thing with futures or selling something short or not, whatever. You're selling something you don't have yet, but it's like you did. You're responsible for it, right? So what does that mean? Here, it all depends. Each case could be different. But here we're talking about the main idea is, can you affect a acquisition or a transfer of property on something that you don't have yet, or that it's going to be effective for, at that point in time? You don't have it yet. Can you make a deal on something yet? Selling the fruits that you don't have yet. It's a sale. It's not really, let's say the fruits never grow, right? The fruits never grow, whatever. The trees all got destroyed or something like that. So no deal then. Can only be effective once he has once they're there. Not necessarily, not every case works retroactively, but they all work in the sense that you could sell or give something away that you don't have yet. That in that sense that it works. Rav Ezra and Yaakov, another opinion. Rav Ezra and Yaakov, the Tanya, yes, Rav Ezra and Yaakov, afilu mamar peros uguzu tlushim. I'm giving these fruits, the fruits of this row, which are already plucked. Yitruma al peros uguzu muchabar. I'm giving fruit on these fruits which are not plucked. You can't give trumas maisis until everything is detached from the ground, until it's harvested. But he's saying, listen, these fruits which are already detached, I'm giving them on trumas maisis on the other ones that are still attached to the ground, or reverse. I'm giving these fruits which are still attached to the ground on these which are detached. When they grow, a third, well, not a pasuk, a third grown is considered this when they're ripe enough that you can give trumas maisis. And they were then detached or plucked. When they grow a third, and they will be plucked. Even though they're not here yet, you can't do it right now. You can't give trumas and maisis right now on something which is in the ground. And yet, I say when they will be plucked, I want them to be done. What the words that I say now are effective for later on, even though that's also davar shabloim. Rabbi Kiva the Tanan. This is what we start with on Amar Aleph. She says, she puts a vow, or she forbids her handiwork for her husband. And it's also the Tanakh says you don't have to break it because she's already meshubed. You can't say something which you owe me. You can't forbid it on me. It's like you're forbidding something that belongs to me. You can't come and say that I can't have enough from this computer. It doesn't belong to you, right? So this is like her handiwork already belongs to her husband. Rekiva says no, he could break it. Because maybe she will produce more work than he has a lien on. She's only required to produce, let's say, $5 a week of work, and maybe she'll produce 10. So for the extra 5, that she could forbid on him. So she could do that. Okay, but it's not here yet. Still davar shel b'olam. The answer is, Rabbi Kiva holds, you could be mak davar shel b'olam. We gave an answer at the end of yesterday's daf, or at the beginning of today's daf. Rav Huna said, no, it's speaking about where she says, my hands are sanctified. That's how you can disagree with it. But Rav Nachman Bar Yitzchak, he says, no. Rabbi Kiva holds, you could be mak davar shel b'olam, and all his Talmidim, and so on, Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov, and Rebbe, and Rav Meir, and Rebbe, and so on and so forth, they all hold that opinion. You could transfer a possession or acquire something, even that's not here right now. Now, we've discussed how if one aide comes along and says, going back to the case of a woman whose husband went overseas and it was reported that he died, she can get married based on his testimony, right? Because even though aid echad is not believed in Torah, but the rabbis allowed it because a woman's going to check carefully. She doesn't want to wind up forbidden to her husband and to her new husband, and her children could be mamzerim. So we rely on the fact that she's going to check things carefully. Now we come up and we say, that's fine. That's fine if she's marrying, if the one aide comes along to free her to marry somebody in the street. What about in the following case? What about if one aide tells her that her husband dies in order for her to be able to marry Shimon, the brother, right? Reuben's married to Leah. One aide comes along and says, Reuben's dead. There were no children, and she can marry Shimon. Is he believed there too? Well, why not, right? He believed to say she can marry somebody stam when it's not a case of Yibam, whatever case of Yibam. So the Gemara now debates that question. Something, he's not going to just make up a story. It's going to be found out eventually. If he's if he's fibbing over here and the guy shows up, he's going to find out to be a liar, so he's not going to lie about it. So the aide won't lie. The reason why an aide is believed is because she checks carefully before she gets married. Over here, maybe she is in love with her brother-in-law. She got to know him. She's in love with Shimon. Lo daika mitzvah, she'll get married without being careful. Maybe in this case, maybe the general idea that we said, that one person is believed to say, and when we say one person, we mean even a woman, even a slave, even a guy sometimes is believed to say that the husband's dead in order that she shouldn't be an iguna. That's because we'll rely on the fact that she's going to check it. But if she's talking about marrying a family relative, like in this case, her husband's brother, dead husband's brother, maybe she likes him and they like each other, and maybe she won't check. Maybe maybe twins, and maybe, well, then she wouldn't like. Maybe then, and therefore the maybe Eidach is only believed in a case where she's going to marry somebody else, not in a case of Yivama. That's the question. Amalev Sheshas. Church says, look at our Mishnah. We just had the Mishnah yesterday. And so we learned, what was the second case in the Mishnah yesterday? Amalev, they told her, Meis Bincha, your son died, meaning your son died before your husband, therefore it is a case of Yibam. Vinis Yabma, and then she married Shimon. And then they said, I was the other way around. Your husband died first, then the son. So there wasn't supposed to be any evil. In fact, it's forbidden. Your husband died with children. She's not allowed to marry Shimon, right? Takes it, she has to leave Shimon's marriage. You wouldn't even need to get there because it was forbidden marriage. And the kid's a mamzer. So we said, what does it mean, Rishon v'achron? We mean from either before or after the Shmua, the kid's a mamzer. What's the case? Now, remember I said yesterday, Amrullah, they told her. Who's they? Is it one person or is it two? If what happened? They first came along and told her, two people come along and said, your husband died. They told her, no, you said your husband died and then your son died and then your husband. So you should make Ibam, right? Two people told her you could marry Shimon. Then two other people came along and said, no, it was the other way around. They're both dead. Everybody agrees that the son and the husband are dead. But the first guy said that the son died first and then the husband. So she should marry the brother Shimon, marry her husband's brother Shimon. Then the other two guys came along and said, no, it's the other way around. First the husband died, then the son died. So you shouldn't have married Shimon. So if that's the case, why are you relying on the second? You say the kid's a mamzer and she has to leave Shimon's marriage. She should leave that marriage. Why? Because you relied on the second set of Edom? Maybe you relied on the first set of Edom. It's 2 against 2. If the first two Adam said she could marry, she's free to marry Shimon, and she did. So maybe she did the right thing there. But mamzer, why do you say in that case that it's a mamzer? Kids would be a mamzer, suffix mamzer. It's not for sure a mamzer. We don't know what took place. Two people said, the first two said the son died first, in which case she's free to marry Shimon, kid's not a mamzer. The second one said that the husband died first and she shouldn't have married Shimon and the kid would be a mamzer. It's a suffix. Maybe he really means it's a suffix mamzer, but he wasn't careful. He just said mamzer, But Meditani Seifa, the next case, the third case, had a Rishon mamzer, B'achman, and a mamzer. Remember they said that two people come along saying your husband died and she married Yankel. Then two people say, no, he just died now, right? Just died now. When you heard before that he died, he wasn't dead yet. So there we say, if she had children while he was still alive, then the kid's a mamzer. If she had kids now, if she consummated, a child was born or was consummated before, after her husband died, then it's not a mamzer. So since you see over there, he says this one's a mamzer, that one's not a mamzer. We're talking specific. So he says mamzer. Mamzer means mamzer. So it can't be it's 2 against 2. Elav shmamira. It must be. This is what happened. That one guy came along and said that you could marry Shimon because the son died first and then the husband could marry Shimon. The time it also betray. Then two people came and said, no, it was the other way around. The husband died first, then the son. You shouldn't have married Shimon. Then we say, okay, she has to leave and the kid's for sure a mamzer because we believe 2 against 1. By the time it also betray, for sure, if the two people wouldn't have come along and said, no, it was the other way around, and what happened? The husband died first, then the son, and therefore you shouldn't have married Shimon and it could be a mamzer, and the first guy would have been believed. So you see from over here that what? That this that we say that 1/8 is believed to say the husband's dead, that she could marry, applies not only if it's not a case of Yibam, she could stop marry somebody else when there's no Yibam, even in the case of Yibam. The first guy came along and said, your son died, then your husband, and she's free to marry Shimon, and based on that, we do accept him. We don't say, maybe she had a thing for her brother-in-law, and she's not going to check carefully. No, we do believe it. Guy's not. We assume that a person not lying about this, and it would be found out, and presumably she checks also. So that's the first way to learn. Some say, there's no question about that. To marry the Yavam, to say that her husband's dead and to marry Yavam, of course the 1/8 believed. Even she's believed. She herself is believed. The Tanani, Shomer, Meis Bali, where a woman says her husband's dead. Tinasa, let's say a woman's not married, not a case of Yibam. And she says, I know my husband's dead. She can marry. We believe her because she doesn't want to mess herself up and become a sota and have her kids mom. So she believe. Or let's say she's believed to say, like this case, my husband's dead. I want to marry Shimon. Yibam Chalitza. She can make Yibam there. We don't say maybe she had a thing for him and she's lying. We assume that if she says her husband's dead and she's free to marry Shimon, if it's a case of Yibam, she could do that. There's no question about that. That she's believed, and certainly 1/8 is believed. Here's the other question. Maybe it's the other way around. Maybe they are twins, Michael, and maybe she hates the brother-in-law. That's the question. If she's married to Reuben, and Reuben has a brother Shimon, and there's no kids. The question is she believed to say that what Yivam Alma? Eid Echad says she's allowed to marry, because how would Eid Echad say she's allowed to marry? Either to say what? That the husband and son went overseas, right? And a guy says, listen, your husband died first, then the son. You're free to marry. You're free to marry the shuk. Or the husband and the brother went overseas. The husband and his brother. Reuben and Shimon both went overseas. They were partners in a family business, the usual mess. And then they killed each other over the deal, whatever, right? Brothers got in the business, Shutfin, and they both died. So she comes along and says, I know it was known that her husband died. I know my brother-in-law died too. So I want to marry the shuk. Maybe she doesn't like him. So that's the question. She's believed to say that her husband died to marry somebody else or to marry even the Yavam. The question is, if she's a Yavama, is she believed to say that she can marry somebody else, that her husband and her Yavam are both dead, so that she can marry somebody else? See, if it's not a case of Yibum, just say her husband's dead, we believe her. She's not going to go commit adultery. Stam, we believe her husband's dead. And if she says her husband's dead so that she's free to marry Shimon, we believe her there too. The question is if she wants to get out of marrying Shimon. Her husband's dead, and now there's a brother. She doesn't want to marry him. He can even force himself on her, as we said, if God forbid he forced himself on her. She doesn't want to marry him. She abhors him. She finds him repulsive. So do we believe him there? In other words, so an aide comes along and says, your brother-in-law Shimon's dead. Or there was no case of Shimon because your husband died before your son. So there's also no case of Yibam. So to get out of Yibam, do we believe him there? To get out of the case of Yibam, to free her to marry somebody Yankel in the street, do we believe one aid there? My time at Eid Echad. Why is a Eid Echad believe Mishum Milson? He's not going to lie about something which will be found out eventually. He's not going to lie and say that Shimon's dead when he's not. Over here, we're not so sure if the son and the brother, the son and the husband died. Who died first? Maybe it won't be revealed so much. Maybe we won't know. But is that the reason for Eid Echad? Because something that's going to be revealed, you won't lie. But Odilma, time at Eid Echad Mishum Didak Mitzvah. The reason why Eid Echad is believed is because we rely on the wife will also check. The Halo Daika here, she's not going to check the Misla because she missed who the son is. She hates the brother-in-law. Instead the other way around. It's always in a love-hate relationship, right? We're not worried about him loving her. That's okay. It's unlikely that she's going to love him. So he's believed to say when she's going to make a case of where she could marry him, where her testimony or the Eid Echad's testimony is to enable Shimon to marry her. There we believe her. But when it's to get out of it, she wants to get out of not only the marriage, but she wants to get out of the brother-in-law. Or we assume that the husband's really dead. We know the husband's dead. But do we believe the Echad say that you don't have to marry Shimon, either because Shimon's dead or because Reuven's son died subsequent to Reuven? Either way, she's out of it. Rav Sheshes said, again from our Mishnah. We said our Mishnah. This was the first case in the Mishnah. They said your husband's dead, then your son died. So in that case, the husband died first, then the son. She's free to marry anybody in the street. Right? She married Yankel. She married Yankel. Then they told the Chilfet, no, it was the other way around. What happened first? The son died first, and then the husband. So there was a case of Yibam. So now, remember, we said this is according to Rabbi Kiva, because what was she over on? Whether you hold like Rav, that Kedusha is not toe-faced with the Yavam Lashuk, or like Shmuel, that maybe it is and you need to get. Either way, according to us, it's not a mamzer. If she doesn't marry, right? Mamzer would be when she marries Shimon, when she shouldn't marry Shimon, because Reuben left a child or something like that, right? But when she should marry Shimon, instead she married Yankel in the street, it's only Yavam Lashuk. According to us, it's only a law, but according to Rabbi Kiva, we said a Mishkos like Rabbi Kiva, it's a mamzer. Because Rabbi Kiva holds Yesh Mamzer Mechai V'Lavan. So they said, so she has to leave the marriage to Yankel. What's the case there? Trey again. If first two people came along and said what? That her husband died first and then the son, she was free to marry Lashug. Okay, so she followed that. And now two other people come along and say, no, it was the other way around. The son died first and then the husband. And then therefore she should have performed Yibum. Right? So why do you, again, why do you believe the second guys and say the kids are mamzer according to Rabbi Kiva? She shouldn't have married Yankel. Why do you believe the second guys more than the first guys? Both mamzer suffix. Why do you say he's for sure? Both mamzer suffix mamzer. You don't know for sure. We don't know which. If it's 2 against 2, you don't know who's telling the truth. Number one, why do you believe the second guys more than the first guys and say she has to leave the marriage and say it's a mamzer? Second of all, even if you forget about leaving the marriage, why do you say he's a mamzer? It's a suffix. We don't know who died first. If the husband died first, right, then it's not a mamzer because she was free to marry the shuk. It's only if they told you and she married the shuk according to then so she was free to marry the shuk then, and it wouldn't be a mamzer. It's only if the son died first and then the father. Then she wasn't free to marry the shuk. And then according to Bekiv, it's a mamzer. It's only something. Maybe wasn't careful when he said mamzer. It means stuff mamzer. Again, Hamidik Seifa, since the third case had a Rishon mamzer, Rachman and mamzer, when the report was simply when did he die? First they told your husband's dead. Then they told him no. Then and she married the shuk. Then they told her your husband's dead now, but he wasn't dead before. So before the kid's a mamzer. If she had a child a conception took place after he actually died, then the kid's not a mamzer. So you see, Shmam, the Daf Ketani, you're careful with the words about when he's mamzer, when not mamzer. Elalav. So if it's 2 against 2, then why do you believe the second guy's more than the first guy? Elav Chad must be speaking where the first guy was only one guy. Remember, one guy came and told her your husband died and then your son. Therefore, she was free to marry Yankel in the street, and she did so. Now when we say they told her the otherwise, the kid's a mamzer and she has to leave marriage, Elav Chad. And then 2 people came afterwards and contradicted her. 2 Adam came a time, it also betray Kashua. 2 people came. That's why we believe the second guys, because that's 2 against 1. But if it wouldn't be for this Mehemen. So you see that one person would be believed, even not only like we said on Amid Beis, not only would one person be believed to say that her husband died, so she could marry Shimon, but even to avoid marrying Shimon, one person is believed. He says, no, you can't prove from there. Trey. Really, it's 2 against 2. So we said, why do you believe the second guy's more in the first case? Speaking about elsewhere, speaking about where the second 2 guys said, Imanu Ayisim, you were with us. When do we say 2 against 2 doesn't work? 2 guys say he killed him, 2 guys say he didn't kill him. 2 guys say she was Mazana, 2 guys say he wasn't Mazana. But if the second set of Adam come along and say to the first Adam, you are liars because you were with us in St. Louis at that date, on that time, etc. The Torah tells us, you believe, it's halach in the Torah, that you believe the second said more than the first, even though there's no other reason to believe the second said more than the first. There's no more reliability to them than the first guys. But if their testimony is you were with us, then you believe the second guys. So that's why they're believed over here. So you can't prove this question about this question of, is 1/8 believed only stam, to say the guy's dead so you can marry somebody else? Or is he believed even in a case of Yibam? And we said, apparently in a case of Yibam, to free her to marry the Yavam, their 1/8 would be believed, according to the Ikad Army, because we said even she's believed to say her husband's dead. And we're not worried about that she had carnal intentions on the Yavam and she wants to marry him. She's believed to say that her husband's dead, she marry Yavam. The question over here now is she believed, or is 1/8 believed, or is she believed to get out of marrying them, to avoid marrying the Yavam? That question we haven't yet decided, even though it seems to be, from the Mishnah, etc., it seems to be that is a proof. You could say it's speaking about a case of Eidei Azam, etc., but it seems to be that 1/8 is believed. But tomorrow we'll continue. We'll see that we have more proofs to this question. There's also different opinions, but it seems to be that 1/8 is believed, and even she is believed either way, to say that she could marry the Yavam or to avoid her from marrying the Yavam. We'll see more of this tomorrow, Mitzvah. Have a good day.